At the beginning of our era, in the year 9 and until 23 AD, Wang Mang reigned in China. His short dynasty is considered an interregnum of the Han Dynasty. It was called Xin after the name of the fief of its founder, the Marquis of Xin. Everything goes back to the death of the first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi, since it was the moment when a civil war broke out in China, the context for the establishment of the Han Dynasty, which until then had been in power for almost 2 centuries, in which there was stability. The last 2 emperors of this period of the Han monarchy were Yuan and his son Cheng. Cheng's maternal family, the Wangs, staffed the court, for example, to command the army. However, the influence of the Wangs came to a halt with Cheng's death. His sickly nephew, Emperor Ai, who had no descendants and died in 1 BC. It was at that time that the Wang lineage regained strength and rose to power again. First Ping, a child of only 9 years of age, assumed the throne, and the Dowager Empress Wang appointed her nephew Wang Mang as regent, who had been commander of the army in Cheng's reign. After several family intrigues, Emperor Ping died unexpectedly at the age of 13, apparently poisoned by Wang Mang himself. Another emperor assumed the reign when he was only 1 year old, so Wang Mang remained regent. He sent the infant named Ru Ziying into a 16-year retirement and usurped power by self-proclaiming himself emperor to found the new Xin Dynasty. During his monarchy, Wang Mang devoted himself to re-establishing ancient rites and customs following the precepts of Confucius. This was how he advertised himself, champion of Confucian virtues and guiding force of the empire. This traditionalist streak led him to mint bronze and copper coins to replace the gold ones in an attempt to stabilize the imperial economy, but it reached the point where it was based on speculation and counterfeiting, so it cracked with time. In an essentially peasant society, Wang risked fragmenting and expropriating large tracts of land from the nobility to make distribution more equitable, but this generated animosity against him among the landlords, even though it had forged him legitimacy and recognition among the peasantry. Some of his most notable reforms were the imposition of new taxes on the possession of enslaved persons, the prohibition of the sale of slaves, the nationalization of farmland, and the restoration of the state monopoly over the salt and iron industries. He also implemented architectural changes in the capital, Chang'an, such as the construction of the 9 temples in which the 3 sovereigns and the 5 emperors were worshipped. In China, the mandate of heaven is a political philosophical concept concerning the legitimacy of a government. It means the celestial favor granted to an emperor for peace and prosperity. But it can also be implacable in case the sovereign does not have the necessary gifts. So it is also legitimate for him to be overthrown. According to Chinese tradition, the mandate did not take long to make its divine wrath felt against Wang Mang. For example, as a product of the palace intrigues, aspects such as the repair of the irrigation systems of the Huanghe or Yellow River, a fundamental tributary for trade and life in China, whose channel is clogged with silt, so it overflows looking for an outlet to the sea and sweeping away everything in its path, were neglected. Thus it was that in the years 4 and 11 AD, there were floods that generated many deaths and famine, which was considered as a divine punishment for the emperor's mismanagement, such as a ferocious plague of locusts that devastated the crops. Then the prophecy of the return of the Han Dynasty began to be prophesied. In the north of the country, the presence of the nomadic Xiongnu Confederation threatened to invade, so Wang Mang placed a defense army on the border, an expense that diminished the resources for the rest of the empire. This confederation finally invaded in 19 BC in the midst of civil war. In addition, in the face of peasant discontent, secret societies and groups of bandits were forged, among which the Red Eyebrows, an organization of rebels who lived in the riverside provinces most affected by the floods, stood out. Their name is due to the red stripes with which they made up their foreheads as a symbol of war. They allied themselves with nobles descended from the old imperial clan and defeated all the military factions that Wang Mang sent to suppress them. The Civil War of 19 BC then broke out. Finally, the Red Brows were one of the groupings that in 23 AD overthrew the emperor and his army. These rebels appointed Liu Pengzi as their leader, who was only 13 years old. On the other hand, between the Huanghe and Yangtze rivers, the societies of the villages of central China were seduced by another branch of the Liu family, of which Liu Pengzi was one. There, an army called Green Forests or Lulin was organized, whose commander was Liu Bosheng or Liu Yan. Charismatic and competent, he suddenly became a threat to his peers, since they preferred a mediocre leader who could be manipulated, so they overthrew him by putting in his place a cousin of his. These uprisings put Wang Mang even more on alert, who continued to resist and to send contingents to suppress the insurgents. Although his army was numerous, the attack had to face both the Red Brows and the Green Forests. So it was that in June 23 AD, the Xin militia besieged a garrison of the Green Forests in the city of Kunyang. But the defensive reaction organized by the younger brother of Liu Yan by grouping new rebel troops from the countryside made the offensive to make it surrender and flee. With the defeat in this battle of Kunyang, panic and pessimism spread among the Xin ranks. Wang Mang had lost 2 armies in just 1 year. For its part, on October 23rd of the same year, the Green Forest Army commanded by Zhuang Ben and Zhuang Chun arrived first at the capital Chang'an, now Xi'an, taking advantage of the Green Brows. So their leader, Liu Xu, initiated the restoration of the Han Dynasty. The Xin dynasty was defeated, the palace burned, and Wang Mang was beheaded and quartered. Don't close the video yet. Before you go, please subscribe and leave us a like if you like the video. It will help us grow and keep making much more content. Now, with nothing more to add, we say goodbye.